If you'll raise your right hand, the clerk will administer the oath.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
All right, ma'am. Right around this way and have a seat for me. And if you'll scoot up towards that microphone and adjust it as you need and speak directly into it and loudly so everybody can hear you, all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ms. Wolfson.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Could you please state your name for the record?
Rhonda Rouer.
And Ms. Rouer, could you actually spell your last name for the court reporter?
Rouer.
Ms. Rouer, where do you currently live in Florida?
Brevard County.
And how long have you lived there for?
7, 8 years.
Are you currently working?
Yes, I am.
And what type of work do you do?
I work at a healthcare facility.
Ms. Rouer, do you know someone by the name of Michael Dunn?
Yes, I do.
And do you see him here in court today?
Yes, I do.
And could you please, for the record, describe where he is sitting and something he is wearing?
He's sitting over there, and he's got a jacket on.
And Ms. Rouer, is he at the first or second table?
First table.
Your Honor, may the record...
Let the record reflect she's identified the defendant.
Ms. Rouer, how long have you known the defendant for?
I guess about 5 years.
Now, when you first met the defendant, did you start dating soon after that?
Yes, we did.
And did you eventually become engaged to the defendant?
Yes, we did.
Now, back in November of 2012, were you engaged at that point?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn? During your relationship with him, did you all ever live together?
Yes.
And where did you all live together?
In Satellite Beach.
And was that at 257 Ocean Residence Court?
Yes.
Ms. Rouer, I'd like to turn your attention to November 22nd of 2012. That was Thanksgiving Day?
Yes,
And do you remember that Thanksgiving?
I do.
Now, where were you living back on November 22nd of 2012?
In Satellite Beach.
Okay. And that was with the defendant?
That's correct.
Did you all spend Thanksgiving night in Satellite Beach?
No.
Could you tell the jury where you all spent Thanksgiving night?
Jacksonville.
And why were you and the defendant up in Jacksonville that night?
His son was getting married the next day.
So his son was getting married that Friday?
That's correct.
And that would have been November 23rd?
That's correct.
Now, since the wedding was on Friday, why did you and the defendant actually come into town Thursday night?
We took into consideration that you usually can't check in to the hotel until about 3 or 4, and his son's wedding started at 4, and we were bringing our puppy Charlie, and so we wanted to make sure he was situated.
Now, had you ever met the defendant's son before?
No.
And what was the defendant's son's name who was getting married?
His name is Christopher.
Ms. Rouer, what hotel were you all staying at that Thursday night?
The Sheridan.
And did you have plans to also stay there then Friday night?
Yes.
Had you been to Jacksonville before?
Yes.
And when had you been to Jacksonville?
We came up once to visit his daughter when she lived here, and then once when she graduated college.
So both of the previous times you'd been in Jacksonville, it had been with the defendant?
That's correct.
Now, to your knowledge, has the defendant ever lived in Jacksonville?
Yes, he has.
And do you know when it was that he lived in Jacksonville?
No.
And do you know how long ago he lived in Jacksonville?
No.
Now, to the best of your recollection, what time did you and the defendant wake up that Friday morning?
I think it was around 8 or so.
And what did you all do that Friday morning before the wedding?
We went to breakfast.
Do you remember where you went to breakfast?
Mimi's Cafe.
And do you remember where Mimi's Cafe was?
It's, I think it's in a mall area.
Was it like an outdoor mall area?
Yes.
Now, after breakfast, what did you and the defendant do?
We went back to the hotel.
What time was Christopher Dunn's wedding that Friday?
4 o'clock.
And approximately what time did you and the defendant start getting ready for the wedding?
About 2:30.
And while you were getting ready, did you yourself have any sort of alcoholic beverages to drink?
Yes, I had a glass of wine.
To your knowledge, did the defendant have any sort of alcoholic drinks while he was getting ready?
No, he did not.
Approximately what time did you all leave for the wedding that afternoon?
Between 3 and 3:30.
And could you tell the jury where the wedding was that you all were going to, just generally speaking?
In Orange Park.
And how did you all get to the wedding?
Michael drove.
And what kind of car was he driving?
Black Jetta.
And was that his car or your car?
That's his car.
And for the record, Ms. Rouer, I'm showing you on the screen next to you what's been previously entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 125. And is that the defendant, Michael Dunn's car that he was driving that night?
Yes.
Now, when you got to the wedding, approximately how many people were there?
I think it was probably around 50.
Okay, and had you met any of his extended, and by his I mean the defendant's extended family before?
No, I had not.
Were you a little bit nervous going to that wedding?
Yes, I was.
Was there a reception after the ceremony?
Yes.
And where was the reception?
At the same place as the wedding.
And was it immediately following the wedding?
Yes.
And did you and the defendant attend the reception?
Yes, we did.
Was alcohol being served at the reception?
Yes.
Did you yourself have anything to drink while at the reception?
Yes, I did.
And could you tell the jury what you had to drink while there?
I had a glass of red wine and 2 or 3 rum and cokes.
Now, who made those rum and cokes for you? Was it a self-serve bar or a bartender?
No, the bartender.
Okay. And what size glasses were your rum and coke served in?
They're like about that size.
Okay. Now, while at the reception, do you know whether or not this defendant had anything to drink?
Yes, he did.
And what was the defendant drinking that night?
Rum and coke.
And do you know how many drinks he had to drink?
He had about 3 or 4.
Ms. Rouer, were there any toasts at the wedding?
Yes, there was a champagne toast.
And did you have a glass of champagne for that champagne toast?
Yes, I did.
Did you see the defendant with a glass of champagne for the champagne toast?
He had the glass in his hand, yes.
Do you know whether or not he drank any?
He may have taken a sip for the toast, but he doesn't drink champagne, so.
Ms. Rouer, how long were you two at the wedding reception that Friday night?
Just a couple hours. We left around 7.
Now, was the reception over when you all left?
No.
Why did you and the defendant leave the reception early?
To get back to the hotel to Charlie.
And that's the puppy you all had with you?
Yeah.
Where had you left your dog?
Back at the hotel?
And was he in a crate?
Yeah.
When you left the wedding, did the defendant drive you back in the Jetta, back to the hotel?
Yes, he did.
Were you at all concerned with how much he had had to drink when you got in the car with him?
No, not at all.
Once you left the wedding, where did you all go?
To the gas station.
Ms. Rouer, did the defendant need directions to get to the gate gas station?
No.
Do you remember him using a GPS or anything like that?
No.
To your knowledge, had the defendant been there before?
Yes.
Ms. Rouer, if you can look on your computer next to you. Do you recognize State Exhibit 2?
I do.
And is that then an overhead photograph of the gate gas station?
Yes.
And that's the gate gas station that you all went to that night?
Yes.
Now, in looking at State's Exhibit 2, Ms. Rouer, can you show the jury, and you can touch the screen with your finger and show them which entrance you all took getting into the gas station?
That one?
Now, once he pulled into the gas station, did he pull into a parking spot right away?
Yes, he did.
And was that a spot that was directly in front of the gas station front doors?
Yes, it was.
What was the reason, Ms. Rouer, for stopping at the gas station?
To get a bottle of wine.
And whose idea was it to stop at that gas station?
Mine.
Ms. Rouer, I'm showing you State's Exhibit 5. And do you recognize State's Exhibit 5 as a photograph of the front of the gas station?
Yes.
And can you show on the screen where the defendant parked his car that night?
right there.
And for the record, is that the first spot to the left of the front doors?
Yes,
When the defendant parked his car in that spot, do you remember whether or not there was a vehicle directly on the defendant's left?
yes, there was.
And what can you tell the jury about the color and make of that car?
I could tell that it was a red vehicle.
Ms. Rouer, how close was the defendant's car to the red car when he pulled in? Do you remember?
It was very close.
Would the defendant have been able to get out of his car?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Ms. Rouer, do the doors on the defendant's car, do they open
Objection,
wide?
Your Honor, meeting.
Overruled.
And you can answer the question, Ms. Rouer.
They do open wide.
Now, when you pulled in the gas station, was your window up or down?
Up,
And what about the driver's side window?
up.
When the defendant pulled into the parking space, could you hear any music coming from the red vehicle?
Yes,
And that was from the vehicle to your left?
that's correct.
How loud was the music that you heard coming from that red vehicle?
It was very loud.
Could you understand any of the lyrics that were coming from the music that was playing?
No, I could not.
Could you make out, though, what type of music it was?
Yes, I could.
And what type of music was being played?
Rap music?
Could you hear the bass from inside of your car?
Yes,
And from inside your car, do you ever remember the interior of your car vibrating or shaking from that bass?
no,
When the defendant parked the car, did he say anything about the music when he parked next to the red car?
yes.
And what did the defendant say?
I hate that thug music.
And what was your response back to the defendant?
Yes, I know.
Now, once he parked his car, what did you do?
I gave him a kiss. I took $20 and went to the store.
Now, prior to pulling into the parking lot, Mrs. Rouer, had it been discussed which one of you would be going into the gas station?
No,
And when you got out of the car that night, was your window still up?
yes,
And was the driver's side window still up?
yes,
Did you close the passenger side door behind you?
yes, I did.
When you got out of the car and headed towards the gas station, did you at all pay attention to the red vehicle next to you?
No,
Did you have any reason to pay attention to it?
no,
As you were walking up to the store, though, could you still hear the music playing?
yes,
And at that point in time, could you hear the actual lyrics of the song?
no. I mean, I could hear him, I couldn't make him out.
Okay. Now, when you were walking into the store, did you notice or hear any sort of arguing going on behind you?
No,
Once you got into the store, where did you go?
into the aisle that has the line.
Ms. Rouer, I'm showing you State's Exhibit 41. Do you recognize State's Exhibit 41?
I do.
And what do you recognize those items to be?
The items that I picked up.
Once you picked up the bottle of wine and the bag of chips, where did you go?
To the counter.
The cash register? Is that
Yeah.
Okay. Now, while you were in the store, and specifically at the cash register, could you hear the music coming from that red vehicle?
No, I could not.
Could you at that point hear any sort of argument
No, I did
from
not.
outside?
No,
And as you were at the register, did you hear anything unusual?
yes, I did.
Could you tell the jury what you heard?
I heard a pop, pop, pop.
And was that 3 pops at first?
Yeah.
When you heard those pops, did you know exactly where they were coming from?
No, I did not.
And to the best of your memory, where were you standing when you first heard those gunshots?
Well, the counter kind of goes like this, and then the register is here. So I was walking up the aisle this way when I first heard the pops.
And when you say the register goes like this, are you meaning it's kind of like a
An
L
L
shape?
An L shape
Okay.
kind of thing, yeah.
When you heard those pops, were you at all paying attention to what was going on outside?
No.
Was your back actually to the outside of the store?
Yes.
And were you facing away from the windows and the door?
Yes.
What did you say when you first heard those gunshots?
I asked, what was that?
And was that then to the cashier you were in front of?
Correct.
And what did you hear next?
I heard another pop, pop, pop.
And what do you remember doing after hearing the second round of shots?
I turned around.
When you turned around, what did you see?
I saw Michael facing out of his car.
And could you explain to the jury which direction he was facing when you looked out?
Well, if this is the driver's seat, he was faced out this way.
And could you tell if the door was open or closed?
The door was open.
When you looked out, could you see the red vehicle that had been on the other side of his car?
No.
And when you looked out, were you able to see where the defendant's hands were?
No.
Could you explain to the best of your ability the position that you saw the defendant in when you looked out the window?
It just looked like he was still seated in his seat, but he was facing out, like I could see his profile.
Ms. Rouer, when you turned around and looked out, were you at all able to see a gun at that point in time?
No.
And what did you do after turning around and seeing the defendant in that position?
I started walking towards the door.
What did you do with the wine and chips that you had?
I left them on the counter.
Did you leave your change on the counter as well?
Yeah.
When you got to the front door of the gas station, did you open the front door?
Yes, I did.
And did you immediately walk out?
No.
What happened when you were at the front door?
Michael said, get in the car.
And did you listen to him?
No.
What happened next?
He said more urgently, get in the car.
And at that point,
I
you-
got in the car.
and was that in the front passenger seat?
Yes.
Ms. Rouer, as you got in the passenger seat of the car, did you see a firearm at that point in time?
Yes.
Ms. Rouer, if you look on the screen, I'm showing you State's Exhibit 113. Is that the firearm you saw when you got back into the car?
Yes.
And what was the defendant doing with the gun when you got back into the car?
He was putting it in the glove box.
Do you remember, Ms. Rouer, when he was putting the gun back in the glove box, whether or not the gun was in a holster?
No,
You don't remember?
I do not.
What did the defendant do after you got into the passenger seat of the car?
He started to back up
And can you describe for the jury in the manner in which he pulled out of the gas station that night?
very quickly.
Did he wait for you to put your seatbelt on?
No.
Ms. Rouer, I'm showing you again State's Exhibit 2 on the screen. Which way, when the defendant pulled out of that parking space, did he head?
He went this way?
And did he then turn out onto Southside Boulevard?
Yes, he did.
What was the defendant's demeanor like when you were in the car?
He was anxious.
Did you notice any injuries to him?
No, I did not.
Did you own a cell phone at that point in time?
Yes, I did.
Did you have it on you?
Yes, I did.
And do you know whether or not the defendant owned a cell phone at that point in time?
Yes, he did.
And do you know whether or not he had his cell phone on him?
Yes, he did.
Now, Ms. Rouer, prior to actually pulling into this gas station, had you seen police lights at that night?
Yes.
And for the record, I'm showing you State's Exhibit 3. And can you point out in the general direction and location where it was that you saw those police lights?
The gas station's here, right?
Yes, ma'am, is that
Yeah.
Investigate gas station?
And it was like right around here.
Where you put the red mark?
That's correct.
Okay, and for the record, that's on the west side of the intersection of Southside and Bay Meadows? Now, when you were leaving the gas station, could you still see those police lights, Ms. Rouer?
Yes,
And were they in the same location where they had been the first time you saw them?
yes,
How long, when you left the gas station, did the defendant drive straight back to the hotel?
yes,
On the way back to the hotel, did you see any additional police lights?
yes.
And where were those police lights that you saw?
They were headed in the opposite direction that we were going.
Ms. Rouer, how long did it take you to get back to the hotel?
Not long.
Was the defendant looking in his rearview mirror
Yes,
and his side mirrors?
yes.
When you got back to the Sheridan, where did the defendant park his car?
Up front.
Did he park the car normally or did he back it in?
No, he parked normally.
And once the defendant parked the car, what did you and the defendant do?
We both got out of the car.
Did you get out first?
Yes, I did.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
Did, Ms. Rouer, did you get out of the car first?
Yes, I did.
Can you describe for the jury how you and the defendant walked into the hotel?
Very quickly.
Prior to getting out of that car, did you ever see the defendant open the glove box and take that firearm out again?
No.
Once inside the hotel, what did you do?
I changed my clothes.
And was that back in your hotel room?
Yes.
Now, what floor? Do you remember what floor of the hotel you and the defendant were staying on?
I think we were on 4.
Okay, but you had to take an elevator up to your room?
Yes.
While you were changing your clothes, what was the defendant doing?
He took Charlie to go outside to go potty.
Did you go with him?
No,
How long was the defendant gone with your dog?
I don't know.
Where were you when the defendant came back from walking Charlie?
I was sitting by the elevators.
And can you explain to the jury where exactly you were sitting, just so they have an idea as to what that area looked like?
Outside the elevators, on each floor, they have a like a sitting room with chairs, a sofa, and a television.
And why were you sitting right there?
I was waiting for the police to come.
Did the defendant eventually come back up from walking your dog?
Yes,
When he came back in, did you and the defendant eventually go back into your room?
yes,
And once you got back in your room, at some point, did you and the defendant decide to order a pizza?
yes.
And how did you go about ordering that pizza?
I went downstairs and got the information from the front desk.
And once you got that information, did you come back upstairs and give it to the defendant?
Yes, I did.
And did he then call the pizza place?
Yes, he did.
And the defendant then placed the order?
Yes, he did.
And was that a delivery pizza?
Yes,
When the pizza arrived, did the defendant go downstairs to get the pizza?
yes, he did.
And did you go with him?
No, I did not.
When he came back up, did the two of you then eat slices of pizza?
I had a couple bites.
Do you know whether or not the defendant had any pizza?
No, I don't.
Where were you sitting when you were eating your pizza?
On the bed looking out the window.
Was your back to the defendant?
Yes, it was.
Were you staring out the window?
Yes, I was.
Do you remember whether or not the blinds to that window were open or closed?
They were open.
Ms. Rouer, did you have anything to drink while you were in the hotel room?
Yes, I did.
And could you tell the jury what you had to drink?
I had a rum and Coke.
Did the defendant have anything to drink?
Yes, he did.
And what did he have?
He had a rum and Coke.
And who made those drinks for you two?
Michael.
Were they stronger than the ones that you all had at the wedding?
Yes, they were.
And were they in bigger glasses?
Yes, they were.
Did you then attempt to fall asleep?
Yes, I did.
Where was the defendant when you tried to fall asleep?
He was sitting on the other side of the bed.
At some point that night, were you actually able to fall asleep?
Yes, it was.
Prior to falling asleep, did you watch any television?
The TV was on, but I wasn't watching.
What time do you remember waking up the following morning?
I think it was about 7.
And where was the defendant when you woke up?
It was in the bathroom.
Ms. Rouer, when you woke up, was the television on?
Yes, it was.
And did you happen to see something on the news that morning about what had happened at the gas station?
Yes, I did.
And at that point in time, did you in fact learn that a teenager had been killed at the Gate gas station?
Yes, I did.
Ms. Rouer, did you then tell the defendant that you wanted to go home?
Yes, I did.
Did you and the defendant then pack up your things and actually head back home?
Yes, we did.
Do you remember what time you all checked out of the hotel and left Jacksonville?
I think it was around 8.
And who was driving on the way back home?
Michael was.
Did you and the defendant go straight back home?
Yes, we did.
Did you make any stops on the way?
No, we didn't.
Approximately how long did it take you to get home?
About 2.5 hours.
Did you have your cell phone on you?
Yes, I did.
And do you know whether or not the defendant had his cell phone on him?
Yes, he did.
Did either of you call 911 on the way home?
No.
Now, did you and the defendant actually have other plans for that Saturday night?
Yes.
And were those plans to go to St. Augustine at a bed and breakfast?
Yes.
Did either of you call and cancel that reservation?
No.
Around what time did you get back to your house in Satellite Beach?
I guess it was about 10:30.
Ms. Rouer, I'm showing you State's Exhibit 98. And is that a photograph of 257 Ocean Residence Court where you were living at the time?
Yes, it is.
Where did the defendant first park the car when you got back to your house?
And just outside of the garage.
And what did you and the defendant do once he had parked the car?
I took Charlie out back to go potty.
And do you know what the defendant was doing while you took Charlie out?
He was getting the crate out of the car.
After you all unpacked the car, did the defendant then move the car into the garage?
Yes, he did.
Ms. Rouer, while you were at your house, did you receive a call with a 904 area code on it?
Yes, I did.
And was that on your cell phone?
Yes, it was.
When you saw that call come in, did you immediately hand the phone to the defendant?
Yes, I did.
And why did you hand your phone to the defendant when you saw that call come in?
Because I saw it was from the 904 area code and I thought it might be his son. We were supposed to meet him that day for lunch in St. Augustine.
And did you actually find out who was calling your cell phone?
Yes, I did.
And was that a homicide detective from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office?
Yes, it was.
Where did the defendant go once he got off the phone?
To our neighbor's house.
Now, did the defendant come out the front door and go to your neighbor's house, or did he go around back?
And then we went around back.
And approximately how many units away from your house is this neighbor's house?
He's about 3 or 4 down.
Is that 3 or 4?
3 or 4 down.
Ms. Rouer, did you eventually go over to the neighbor's house as well?
Yes, I did.
Once you got to the neighbor's house, did you receive another call on your cell phone?
Yes, I did.
And who was the second phone call from?
The Brevard County Sheriff.
And did members of the Brevard County Sheriff's Office eventually come outside your condominium complex?
Yes.
And did the defendant eventually go outside when they asked him to?
Yes.
Did you eventually speak with members of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office later that day?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, at this time I would ask permission to publish State's Exhibit 168, the surveillance tape.
All right.
And Ms. Rouer, for the record, is that you walking in?
Yes.
And you're in the black and white outfit?
Yes.
Ms. Rouer, are you still engaged to the defendant?
No, I'm not.
Are you still in a relationship with him?
Objection on irrelevance.
Sustained. Well, overruled, I'm sorry.
You may answer the question.
No, I'm not.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Hanania?
No, let me approach before I begin.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Need the court reporter?
Yes, sir.
All right, Miss Hanania, cross.
Thank you, Ron. 1 minute.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, ma'am, Ms. Rouer, you have indicated that you were, excuse me, that you were at the time that this incident occurred engaged to Mr. Dunn. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you'd known him then for about 2.5, 3 years. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
And you were living together.
Yes.
So you knew him well,
Yes.
and you had seen him in any number of situations. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
You would agree that at the time, being engaged to Mr. Dunn, that you were an important person in his life.
Yes.
Your feelings were important to him.
Yes.
And you would also agree that he was a pretty mellow kind of guy. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
He wasn't a confrontational person. Is that fair to say?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Now, ma'am, you had indicated that you'd come up to Jacksonville with Mr. Dunn to attend his son's wedding. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And now, you've indicated that there was alcohol served at this wedding. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. But you weren't pouring your own drinks, right?
No.
And Mr. Dunn wasn't pouring his own drinks?
No.
Okay. And you've indicated the size of those drinks was pretty small, correct?
Yes.
And do you recall how tall Mr. Dunn is?
Yes.
How tall is he?
He's 6'4".
Okay. And at that time, what was his size?
Weight?
I mean, like his weight, yes, ma'am.
He's a little on the heavy side.
Okay. Was he even about what he looks like today?
No heavier.
Okay. And Mr. Dunn ate at the wedding, correct?
Yes, he did.
You didn't really have anything to eat there, though.
I didn't eat that much, no.
And he didn't have anything to drink before the wedding,
No.
just you.
That's correct.
And the wedding went well, correct?
Very well.
It was a happy occasion,
Very much so.
and Mr. Dunn was happy to be with his family and friends,
Yes, he was.
and there weren't any arguments that blew up. You know how sometimes at family events, somebody gets into a row. That didn't happen.
Not at all, no.
And when y'all left the wedding reception, Mr. Dunn was still in a happy mood.
We were very happy.
Now, you indicated that even though he had a few drinks, you didn't have any concerns about him driving.
No, not at all.
He wasn't behaving any differently than you normally do.
No.
And you've seen him in the past when he's had a couple of drinks, right?
Yes, I have.
Miss Hanania, did that mic go out on you?
Oh, apparently did not.
It died, so we need a new one, please.
Is it on?
Yeah. that
Okay.
makes sense.
I'm sorry, I was asking you, he wasn't, and he typically doesn't, his behavior doesn't change when he has a couple of drinks, does it?
He just gets happier.
Now, ma'am, y'all stopped at the gate gas station because you wanted to make a stop there, is that right?
That's correct.
And the white wine was for you primarily, right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
So now, you testified that y'all pulled in and he parked, and you've testified here today that the cars were parked very close together.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, ma'am, you do recall that after you got back to your home in Satellite Beach, you met with Detectives Musser and Detective Oliver, correct?
That's correct.
And you had another interview with them a few days later. I believe that was on November 28th. Isn't that correct, ma'am?
Was that Wednesday? It was a Wednesday.
Okay. So, but you remember having two conversations with them?
I do.
Okay. And you remember that Detective Musser and Detective Oliver were there specifically to ask you about what happened in this case, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And you stated here today that the cars were parked very closely together. Ma'am, isn't it true that when you were asked that question by Detective Musser during that interview, that you told Detective Musser that you couldn't tell him how closely the cars were together? Isn't that right, ma'am?
Yes, but
And that he then asked you, you didn't make notice of how close he parked them, and you said no. Isn't that correct, ma'am?
yes.
Now, you were asked about whether or not you noticed the car y'all were in, vibrating or doing anything like that. Your time in that Jetta before the red car left was very brief. Isn't that correct, ma'am?
That's correct.
Okay, y'all pulled in. He handed you had a brief conversation. He handed you some money, and you got out of the car. Is that right?
That's correct.
So it would have been seconds that you were in the car before you were then in the store, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And by the time you came back out, the red car was gone.
That's correct.
Now, you've testified that Mr. Dunn said, "I hate that thug music." He wasn't yelling when he said that, right?
No.
He wasn't screaming?
No.
He wasn't angry?
No.
Would it be fair to say that he sounded mildly annoyed?
Yes.
Now, ma'am, you were asked to describe what you heard while you were in the gate gas station. And you were taken through it very slowly. That you heard pop, 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 then you did this, then you did that, then you heard pop, pop, pop. Would it be fair to say, ma'am, that this all happened very fast?
Yes.
Okay. So it didn't take the 2 minutes or so that it took you to describe it. It was all like this, correct, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. And you said that when you looked out that you saw Mr. Dunn sitting in the car with the open door, Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And when you looked out, it was immediately after having heard those pops, right?
Yes.
And you never saw him standing out in the parking lot in some type of shooter pose?
No.
Now, ma'am, you were asked to describe Mr. Dunn's demeanor, and you described him as anxious. Isn't it true, ma'am, that you described him as being shaken up?
Yes.
That he was actually physically shaking when you got back to the car, correct?
I don't recall him physically shaking.
Isn't it true, ma'am, that when you met with Detectives Musser and Oliver during these interviews, that you actually told them that he was shaking?
Yes.
And that you'd never seen him like this before, correct?
That's correct.
And that while you drove back to the hotel that y'all were staying at, correct?
Yes.
That you actually got out of, let me back up for a moment. You yourself were shaken up as well, correct?
Yes. Yes.
you've been very emotional here today. You were as emotional then, at the time that this happened, would it be fair to say?
I wasn't crying.
Okay. You weren't crying?
I wasn't crying.
Okay. You were shaken up?
I was very shaken up, yes.
Okay. You were scared of what was going on?
I didn't know what was going on.
Okay. When you got back to the hotel, you got out of the car, and you walked really quickly to the hotel, and Mr. Dunn followed you, right?
Correct.
Okay. In fact, you almost ran to the hotel. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Now, you've testified that you went up and changed your clothes, and he took y'all's dog down, correct?
That's correct.
And it was described as taking him for a walk, but in actuality, ma'am, isn't it true that all he had to do was to go down the elevators and go around the corner to this concrete slab?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Sustained.
Ms. Rouer, had you taken the dog down while y'all had been there?
Yes, I have.
And is that what you did? You took the elevators down and you walked around to this concrete slab?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Sustained.
You don't know that Mr. Dunn actually took the dog for a walk. You just know he took him down to let the dog go to the bathroom, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, you talked about having ordered a pizza. Isn't it true, ma'am, that you were so upset at this time that your stomach was upset?
Yes.
That you were feeling physically badly?
Yes.
Okay. And that you were the person that wanted to order the pizza?
Yes.
And because you thought that it might make you feel better?
Well, Michael suggested that I might feel better if I ate something, and it was my idea to order the pizza.
Okay. And isn't it true that you told Detective Musser when you were asked about that, I wanted to order a pizza? Isn't that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And that you got the information as to how to order it, and all Mr. Dunn did was go downstairs and pick it up and bring it back up, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And when it got there, not only did you just have a couple of bites, but you don't remember or seeing Mr. Dunn eat anything.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, you talked about the fact that y'all had mixed these rum and cokes, and that those were much stronger than the ones that you'd had at the wedding, correct? Or at least somewhat stronger.
Correct.
Okay. Now, isn't it true, ma'am, that the reason that y'all did that is because you're both still so shaken up?
Yes.
In other words, this wasn't date night that y'all were having, right?
No.
Okay. This wasn't pizza and a beer and you guys were enjoying yourselves. Isn't that right?
That's correct.
Okay. You tried to go to sleep, but when you finally did go to sleep, Mr. Dunn was still awake, correct?
That's correct.
He was sitting on the side of the bed.
That's correct.
And when you woke up the next morning, he was already up.
That's correct.
And to your knowledge, he didn't even sleep.
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Sustained.
And y'all were staying in a hotel room, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the TV was just kind of on in the background. Is that right, ma'am?
That's correct.
And it's true, ma'am, isn't it, that you're the person that wanted to go home when y'all found out about the death of this person. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Okay. And that you were adamant about wanting to go home. Isn't that right, ma'am?
Yes.
Now, when you did get home, you said that Mr. Dunn parked his car in the garage. That's where he normally parked the car, isn't it?
When we first got home, no, he was parked outside the garage. Because you can't,
Go ahead.
You can't open the doors because it's a small garage.
Okay. But he would normally park his car inside the garage?
Yes,
Okay. And once he had parked his car in the garage, he actually had left the door open, isn't that right, ma'am?
he left the door open?
The garage door open?
The garage door open, yes.
Okay. And you're actually the person that closed the garage door so that it looks the way it looks in that photograph you were shown?
Yes,
And when you drove to the hotel the night before, did Mr. Dunn parked the car right in front of the hotel?
yes,
Okay. Did he back the car in so that you couldn't see the tag number?
no,
Did he make any attempt that you saw to hide the presence of the car?
no,
Or to try to make it unnoticeable?
no.
Now, you indicated that after you had gotten to the house that Mr. Dunn eventually went over, or shortly, almost immediately after you got home, went over to Mr. Lescolette's home, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And while the two of you were there, Brevard County Sheriff's officers arrived. Is that right?
That's correct.
And they gave instructions to Mr. Dunn. Is that right?
That's correct.
And he obeyed all of the instructions that they gave him. Isn't that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And ma'am, isn't it true that immediately following the incident, you believed that you could have been arrested for this incident?
Yes,
Okay. You believed that simply by your being present and part of this, that you yourself were potentially facing criminal charges. Isn't that right?
yes,
You still believed that